prove to you that he had the state of mind in the situation that he has that was not disputed, that he's taking, I mean, from February of 2018, this young man had an impeccable record, had served our country in Iraq, had seen horrible things in Iraq. They called him Doc. He saved lives over there. He came over here. He became a Border Patrol agent, was impeccable record, immediately raised and rose up to the intelligence unit. Come February of 21, migraines, nightmares, post-traumatic, insomnia. And then all hell breaks loose from February of 2018 to September of 2018. I think you have the right to say, hey man, was this guy really had the ability? Did he really, was it really that he wanted? Regardless of what he stated, was it really a common scheme and plan? Was that really, did he have the capacity to do that? You have to decide. That guy, and then all these pills, and everything that happened at the VA, all because he couldn't find a primary doctor in Laredo because he had the primary in San Antonio. You really have to ask yourself, is this guy really a serial killer? Or did these things mess him up so much that no, he didn't have that capacity? And if you find that the state fails to prove to you that he did not have that capacity, then the charge tells you, now consider, because then if that's the conviction, then it's life without parole. If that's the conviction, life without parole. Okay, Your Honor. And so then you can consider murder. And you can say, well, I think the state proved to me that he was committing murders, but he didn't have the capacity to form this common scheme and plan because he was so messed up. And so you can convict him of individual murders. Okay? And I will submit to you that given the evidence that we have of who this young man was, like I said, almost a war hero, a lifesaver, a law enforcement officer, protector of our rights, to suddenly, after he starts taking these pills in February of 2018, to become this. Is this guy really a serial killer? And you have the right to say, I don't think you proved that beyond a reasonable doubt. I just have questions about that I'm sorry, I can't do that. You have it within your power. And if you decide no, then you do, and you have the right to then say, but I will consider him of murder for killing these women individually. And I submit to you that based on that history, as opposed to a guy that, at 14 carried guns at school, and then at 18 raped a girl, and at 22 he did an aggravated robbery, and then a guy that has the history and then graduates to serial killer, okay, that's a very different situation. I am telling you this is a very unique situation, and that this young man is not a serial killer in the sense of the law. And so I'm asking you that if for any reason I have failed in informing you, if you will, that the evidence of the truck should not be considered. Literally, it's like putting Jack in the box back in the box, or that his statement is voluntary. Then please consider the other one, where it's individual murders and not serial killing, considering his history and his service to our country. I will still say that based on how I started this discussion with you, how I began, that because we are a nation of laws, and because we are and governed, and we accept that, the rule of law, that the behavior and the conduct of the police officers, regardless of what you might think about Mr. Ortiz, based on your oath, you should exclude all the evidence of the statement because, in fact, it violated his rights. No matter, remember what I told you about our founding fathers. They didn't say, oh, these rights are for good people only. Okay? And if your oath is, if you're true to your oath, and only you will know, will know if you're being honest to yourself, true to yourselves, that when you raised that hand, you said, I'm going to follow this oath and rule on the law. I submit to you that based on what you have in front of you, they violated his rights by not accepting the no. That should be it, as clear as day. And then they violated his rights by all this duress. Like I said, it wasn't the ribeye. You know, they weren't offering him dismissals and the like, but he was tied up. And anything that came in from his statement, you should say, I'm not going to consider that as evidence. Because that's what this judge is telling me, if the state failed to convince me beyond a reasonable doubt. And all the evidence that they got from that truck, because they searched it illegally twice, you should say, I'm not going to consider any evidence because they failed. The police are the ones that did these things wrong. They failed to convince me beyond a reasonable doubt. I have reasonable questions. And without that evidence, you should return a verdict of not guilty. Thank you all for listening to me, and I appreciate your time.
All right. Again, the state reserved 46 minutes for rebuttal.